Though we're still in the midst of the free agency frenzy that took hold this week, the Dallas Cowboys are continuing the grind toward the end of April as they look forward to the most important aspect of roster building for their franchise, the NFL Draft. As we know by now, the Dallas Cowboys prefer to build their team through draft, supplement their roster with lower-cost free agent signings, and retain their own players through contract extensions and resignings. As they get ready for the draft, they'll be exploring all opportunities to improve a roster that made it to the divisional round of the NFL playoffs in 2018 with the hopes of advancing even further in 2019. This is the first installment of mock drafts that you'll see from me here at Inside the Star, and like last year, I wanted to explore what some trade options might look like for the Dallas Cowboys. For this installment, I used DraftTech's Big Board over with FanSpeaks on the Clock Premium Simulator. It allows for trades and allows you to select whether the simulation will use the same big board or multiple big boards to create more variables. I selected multiple, because that's closer to the reality of the NFL Draft. Every team has a unique big board that they're operating from. All trades went through DraftTech's trade value chart, which is what the teams use when assigning value to draft picks. 58 trade 58 to San Francisco for 67 and 86 because the Cowboys don't have a first-round pick or a sixth-round pick, and this draft class is deep at several positions where the Cowboys could use some reinforcements. They're going into the draft looking to trade back with their first pick. The San Francisco 49ers come calling and offer pick 67, 3.3, and 104, 4.2 for the 58th overall pick. Per the trade value chart produced by DraftTech, the Cowboys gain 21 points in value from the trade. It's not a far trade back, as it's only 9 spots. Their ability to pick up an extra fourth is huge. 67 Christian Miller, edge, Alabama. With their first pick of the 2019 NFL Draft, the Dallas Cowboys select Christian Miller, edge, Alabama. Somewhat of a forgotten man on the Alabama defense, Miller exploded for 8 sacks and 11 tackles for loss in his senior season with the Crimson Tide. With Randy Gregory facing an indefinite suspension, the Cowboys could use some help on the opposite side of DeMarcus Lawrence that can provide pressure. Check out the Draft Network scouting report on Christian Miller. 90 Charles Omenihu, DL, Texas. Admittedly, I'm not as high on Charles Omenihu as some others might be as a second-round selection, but as a third-rounder, I can see the value in drafting Omenihu to help fortify your defensive line. The Texas Longhorn product has experience playing on the edge, 3-tech, and 1-tech alignments, and would probably be best suited playing 3-tech in the NFL. He reminds me a bit of Tyrone Crawford in that he doesn't do anything spectacular, but he finds ways to make plays. He was a productive player at Texas, finishing with 9.5 sacks in the season. Back in February I wrote a film review on Omenihu. 104 trade 104 to the Buffalo Bills for 112 and 131 in another trade back. The Cowboys sent pick 104 in the 4th round to the Buffalo Bills for their 2 4th-round picks, 112 and 131. Per the trade value chart, the Cowboys picked up 25 points in pick value by trading back 8 spots. 112 Jonathan Abram, South Mississippi Street. The Dallas Cowboys could use a safety that can play in the box, and Jonathan Abram from Mississippi Street could very well be the guy to line up next to Xavier Woods in the secondary. In 2018, Abram recorded 99 total tackles, 9 tackles for loss, 3 sacks, 5 passes defenses, a forced fumble, a fumble recovery, and 2 interceptions. In 2017, he recorded 71 total tackles, diver tackles for loss, 2 sacks, 2 forced fumbles and 5 passes defensed. Abram, who will be one of the Dallas Cowboys' 30 visitors in preparation for the draft, was a splash player in the SEC. 128 Rodney Anderson, RB, Oklahoma. Were it not for the ACL injury suffered by Oklahoma running back Rodney Anderson, it's possible we're talking about a top 60 selection in this year's draft. Anderson's injury history, however, has him consistently available for the Cowboys in the 4th round. As they look for a backup to Ezekiel Elliott, the Cowboys would be hard-pressed to find a runner as productive and as talented as Anderson is without paying a premium price. Like Elliott, Anderson's a smooth runner, who is able to play through contact as well as make people miss in the open field. For his career, Anderson averaged 6.4 yards per carry and scored 16 touchdowns. His only full season with the Sooners, he rushed for 1,161 yards on 188 attempts, 6.2 yards per carry, 13 touchdowns, and caught 17 passes for 281 yards, and 5 more touchdowns. That's a touchdown every 11.4 touches. Prior to being lost for the season in Week 2 against UCLA, Anderson was averaging 10.8 yards per carry. Read Brian Martin's draft preview on Rodney Anderson. 131 Paris Campbell, WR, Ohio State. Paris Campbell has the speed, quickness, and athleticism to be a threat both in the slot and on the outside for the Dallas Cowboys. Admittedly, it's not likely that a player with his athletic traits and production would be available in the 4th round, but in the NFL draft, there are few guarantees. Campbell recorded 90 receptions for 1,063 yards, and 23 touchdowns in his senior season with the Buckeyes. He'd be an excellent asset in the slot and on the outside as a speed threat for the Dallas Cowboys. 136 Ben Banogu, Edge, LB, TCU. You can never have too many pass rushers, and that's what the Cowboys believe as they double up on weak-side edge players by selecting Ben Banogu from TCU in the 4th round. Banogu was a very productive player for the Horned Frogs. For his junior and senior seasons, Banogu averaged 8.5 sacks and 17.25 tackles for loss. At 6'4", 249, he brings good length to the position and has the frame to add a bit more bulk to help him set the edge in the NFL. 165 Caleb Wilson, UCLA. Count me as one who's excited about the possibility of Blake Jarwin developing into a starting tight end for the Cowboys. He certainly showed over the last half of the season that he's capable, just needs more experience and playing time. That said, despite the addition of Jason Witten, the Cowboys should still look to add a tight end in the draft, and here's a good one in UCLA product, Caleb Wilson. In 11 games for the Bruins in 2,918, Wilson caught 60 passes for 965 yards and 4 touchdowns. He averaged 16.1 yards per reception in the Pac-12. If there's a knock on Wilson, it's that he has had some injury struggles in his collegiate career. He has potential to be a move tight end in the NFL with his receiving ability. 241 Jalen Hurd, WR, Baylor. There are few prospects that can be had around the 5th round or later that are as intriguing as Baylor wide receiver Jalen Hurd. The first 3 years of his collegiate career, Hurd played running back for the University of Tennessee and averaged about 4.6 yards per carry. In his freshman season, he ran for 899 yards and 5 touchdowns, while adding 221 yards receiving on 35 catches and 2 more touchdowns. When he transferred to Baylor for his senior season, the Bears coaching staff converted him to wide receiver and he flourished. In 12 games, Hurd caught 69 passes for 946 yards and 4 touchdowns. The Bears also used him as a runner and he gained 209 yards on 48 carries for 3 more touchdowns. In his 4-year career, he averaged 1,070 yards from scrimmage on 193 touches for 8.25 touchdowns. That's at 2 different positions and 2 different schools. At 6'4", 217 pounds, Hurd has the size to play receiver in the NFL. He has the ability to play both inside and outside and can give you some snaps out of the backfield as well. Check out Brian Martin's film review on Jalen Hurd. This is just one of many scenarios that could take place when the NFL draft rolls around at the end of April. The possibilities are endless. The Cowboys have several needs on the offensive and defensive side of the football, and this draft has players that can fill those areas of need throughout. Obviously, they'll look to draft the best player available when they come on the clock, and these could very well be players that end up with a star on their helmet in 2019. How would you feel about the Cowboys drafting any of these guys?